Right.
All right.
Cool. And we start. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Deviate, and we are back with another video for you guys. So today we are having another grown man's talk with grown men talking, and we have a very good friend of mine. His name is Ben Carpentier, all the way from Australia, and I've actually learned a lot of things from this man. And I have to say that if I haven't met you, I would not be the man that I am today, because I think I'm a better man, better husband, because of what I've learned and observed from you. So I just feel like people can learn from what you have to say, and you have a lot of knowledge that you can just bless people with. So
that's awesome. That makes me really happy to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So the topic that we'll be talking today is something that I think is very beneficial for a lot of men, which is, when it comes to marriage, is the growth within marriage, or let's say the growing pains in marriage. Because as much as people tell us that the first year or the first 5 years is going to be rough, we are not really prepared for that. We don't even know what to expect. So there's some things that when we spoke, I think before you left for Australia, you told me that your wife is going to be the person who you hurt the most, and they're going to be the person that will hurt you the most. And I only I was prepared for it when I came in, but I didn't really know
how much.
Exactly. So I just feel like there's a lot of that that can happen, that people need to know, and not look at an argument and feel like this is the end of marriage, and just learn how to navigate through that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I mean, I would say, as you said, early marriage is really hard to plan for, especially because at the beginning, we've got what we call the honeymoon period, where everything is golden and it smells like flowers, and you're still doing those things that you did when you were dating to impress one another, because you want to be the best version of yourself for the other person. And that's really cool. That's a fun part of getting to know someone and getting married, as long as you're actually trying to be the best version of yourself and not some version of someone else. That's bad. Don't do that. But as you settle into marriage, you really do settle, right? It stops being fireworks every day, and you realize this is forever. This is not just something I rely on for excitement and for fun. This is every day. And there's a few things in that really are growing pains, as you say. You get to know one another in a way you cannot know when you're dating.
True. Yeah,
right?
Because even though you're spending so much time with a person that they don't have to, sometimes when you are meeting a person, you have to kind of prepare to go meet them. But when you're living together, that's who they are all the time.
All the time. And they see you in times that you don't see someone else when you're dating. So when you're dating, even if you're spending heaps of time together, you go to church together and you go out to lunch together and you spend all day together, and you even spend the evening together, and you sit and you watch TV and you think, this is normal life, right? Then you wake up next to someone and you see how they brush their teeth. Then you see how long they spend in the bathroom. You see when you want to go shopping that they're not ready, or you're not ready, or they're always late for everything and you're always on time, or the opposite. And you see why. Why are they late? It's not because something happened, it's because they always don't prepare until the last minute. And you go, why? I see you doing nothing. Why do you say, I have to get ready now when it's already time to leave? So it's things like that. You don't get to know that until you're spending ordinary time together. But there's other things as well, like Okay, when did you meet Doris's family?
Well, for mine it's different because I met them before I met her.
When did she meet your family?
Yeah, just last year when we were getting married.
Yeah. Right? And then she is now going to see them more often.
Yeah.
Right? And not just see them, and you'll see her family as well, but she's going to see your family in you. And you're going to see her family in her.
Yeah.
Because we are all products of our family. Even me, I don't have a very close relationship with my family. Yeah. So I'm like the opposite of my family. But you can still see reflections of my family in me and reflections of my reaction against my family in me. And Penny will see that and say, but that's not my family. That's not how we do things.
Yeah.
So when you have dinner, do you pray before you have dinner? Do you pray after you have dinner?
Yeah.
Do you not pray at all when you eat? You just you know. Do you sit in front of the television and eat, or do you sit at a table and eat?
Yeah.
All I've talked about is eating now. You know, but it's everything, and it gets even more intense when you have kids because how you raise kids goes back to your family.
Yeah.
You know,
and there's also some culture, some traditions that you do with your family that you want to pass on to your kids, or some that you don't want to pass on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, speaking of tradition, you guys have tribal differences.
Yeah.
We don't have that in Australia. We've got class differences. So I'm from a very poor working class family. Penny's from a middle class family. So how we look at money is different based on that.
Yeah.
Right? But man, like it's even double here.
Yeah. It's actually wild because, and I'm starting to see this, that like for personally, when the way I look at money is that you need to buy something that will last a long time. And the way that my wife likes to travel. So since we got married, she hasn't traveled as much. But to me, I'm looking at like, yo, you're just going to have this one-time experience and that's it. Yeah. Like you don't have, it's not going to last as long as, you know, for example, a PS5. But so,
which lasts until the PS6?
Well, the PS6 will come out, but the PS5 is still there. Like
so hang on, you've got a PS4, right?
No, I had to sell it.
Oh, you had to sell it for your PC, But now you want a PS5.
Yeah.
So you could have just kept the PS4 because they last forever.
True.
Experiences, just to stand on Doris's side. So I feel the same way. I like concrete things that last a long time. Yeah. But of course they break and they break down, or you lose them, or you lend them to people and they never give them back, or you have to move to another country and give them to your friends. But experiences, you remember them. So there is something about them that lasts. And I think that's why, especially for people like you and Doris, who are both very visually oriented, photos are physical memories. You know, you look at that and you go, I remember when we were out back there doing this thing, or even just looking at your wedding photos brings back these memories of the wedding day. You know, even though you may not have a photo of it, you've got a photo from it, and then that will trigger a memory from something else. True. So memories are something that you can take even if your house floods and everything gets destroyed. You've still got your memories. Yeah.
So the question that I have is that how do you then balance this thing of, now you know where it comes from? I don't know if that's something you're still going to talk about. Where
I will not stop talking.
So where is that you both have different experiences with how your family kind of like affected all those things and how you and your outlook on life. So how do you then come to a place where you're balancing, like, I understand, but this is how we do things, and how do you move forward from that?
Man, so that is one of the big growing pains early in marriage. It is one that I won't say it disappears. It's actually weird that it doesn't disappear, because you think after time, surely we've answered all the questions now, you know? So maybe you haven't answered all the questions about kids, but then you have a kid and the kid grows up and you think, surely we've answered all those questions. Nope. And the questions just keep coming up about I think we should do something a certain way because that's how we did it.
Yeah.
You think we should do it a certain way because that's how you did it. The answer to that is you guys aren't doing either your family's way or my family's way. You're making your own new family.
Yeah.
Right? And your kids will then get to argue with their spouses about your family's way and their family's way. So really, it's about communicating together about forming this third way that isn't your way and isn't her way.
Yeah.
It's about how are we together going to decide to do things. The big problem with doing things your family's way or doing things her family's way isn't actually doing that. It's that you don't think about it.
Yeah.
This is just how it is for you. I grew up doing it that way and I don't see any other way.
Yeah.
You know? Or even if you've made decisions like me, I don't want to be like my family. So I put decisions in place of how I think.
Yeah.
But that's really just a reaction to how I grew up. Then you see someone else doing it, and even if you want to do it that way, you have to think about it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that looking at your own way and looking at your spouse's way and saying, how do we put this together?
Yeah.
Well, the answer is you have to think about it and you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm shooting ahead here, but I can tell you, communication solves almost every problem in a new marriage.
True. Yeah.
The main problem is usually a lack of communication.
Yeah.
So the answer is more and better communication.
Yeah. And communication, I think, is one of the things that I've heard about. Yeah, communication is the key and all of that, but it's such a vast thing. Like it's not just talk more.
You and me, that's what we want to hear. Oh, you just mean I get to talk more?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got that covered.
Yeah, but it's how you talk, when you talk, understanding what the person is saying, and it's really just a whole big thing when we talk about communication.
Yeah. No, communication is not just talking, it's being heard.
Yeah.
I can say anything I want, but if you don't understand it, there hasn't been communication.
Yeah.
So if I sit here and just talk in Australian slang, or if you talk in Oshavambo, you're talking, but you're not communicating because I don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
So in a marriage, even though you might speak the same language, and that's another one we'll get to, is the love languages.
Yeah.
Because not all communication is verbal,
Yeah.
right? If you're not doing something that they understand and appreciate, even if they don't agree, they've got to at least understand.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what communication is. That's where the focus should be.
Yeah.
So it's interesting I mentioned love languages because I think that's one of the classics when it comes to miscommunication, and it's one of the classic arguments that happens early on in marriage.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really good more people have an understanding of the love languages, and I'll tell you what they are in a second. You should memorize them. You should know them for your whole life, because it's not just about dealing with your spouse. It's how we're not called to show love just to our wife or our husband.
Yeah.
We're called to show love to everyone.
Yeah.
And so if we can think about how we show love to one another, then that's really good. So having a structure to it, look, it gets more complicated, but having a structure to it means you can at least think through yourself, your actions, your words, how you do things, and say, is this showing love? And is the other person understanding that I'm showing them love?
Yeah.
So let me go through those real quick. Well, Deviate, you know all the 5 love languages, right?
I believe so. So there is giving, gift giving, time, quality time spent.
Quality time.
Acts, words of affirmation.
Okay, words of affirmation.
That's 2 more.
Physical touch.
Physical touch, yes.
And acts of service.
Acts of service, yeah.
Yeah, so you had acts of something.
Yeah.
The apostles. Yeah. So those are the 5. The order that Deviate put them in may or may not be important, but everyone has an order. Some people, they feel all of those different love languages kind of similarly, but one probably still comes out on top. And others, like me, one is way on top and one is way down the bottom. So for me, number 1 is quality time. If it doesn't have quality time, then I find it very difficult to feel like I am loving someone or I'm being loved.
Okay.
Then next for me is physical touch, and probably then works of service. They kind of mingle in. I think physical touch just pips works of service, but they're kind of similar.
Okay.
Then words of affirmation is number 4. So if you write me a poem, I'll be like, oh, that's nice. And number 5 is like way down here, which is gift giving.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that because I remember I got you 2 video games that I thought you would really like. And I think your reaction was like, thanks. Just like, that's all. That's all okay.
Yeah. I remember when it was your birthday once, and you were like, you sent out a list, and I was like, awesome! I don't have to think what he wants. I can just go, here it is. There you go.
Yeah. So I would say at the top would most likely be gift giving, physical touch, and acts of service. I think those ones kind of like, depending on the day,
they move around.
They move around. And words of affirmation is pretty much last. And
quality time is the bottom.
Oh, man. And I think because quality time for me, again, I think the first, they kind of like move around because I was like, if I am there, that is time spent. Right? That's
the difference between time and quality time.
Yeah, I guess. So so I think quality time is probably at number 4 because I just think being present to me is time, like I said, but that's not quality time. So
yeah, and this is why it's amazing that Deviate and I are friends because my love language top is on his bottom, and your top love language is the bottom for me.
Yeah.
So it does show that you can still show one another love, especially in the middle range, but that can cause in a marriage that big difference can cause a lot of difficulty because your spouse is trying to show you love and you're not hearing it because it's in the wrong language for you, but also that frustrates them because they're like, I'm doing all this thing, and the response is, oh, thanks.
Yeah, true.
That's not really valuable to me, but hey, thank you. So it's not just about learning how to show people love in their language, but it's also about understanding receiving love in their language so that they feel validated because they're honestly trying to show you love. So you can imagine early in a relationship, especially in marriage, once the deal is done, right? Like there's no going back now. And I don't feel like I can love this person. During the dating and early in the honeymoon period, everything's just on a high anyway because of hormones and things. And you think, that's fine. Oh, they didn't really accept my gifts. Who cares? Because we're in love. But 4 years in, man, that is dead.
Yeah.
And for the better, because basing things on that sort of flighty emotional thing is just bad. Because that maybe it can come back. Sometimes something can happen and you're like, oh, I just feel full of love for this person. And it will go again, right? You cannot chase it. It's like chasing a drug high. It just gets harder and harder to find.
Wow.
So don't do that. It is much better to build on what your relationship really is. And that means working at expressing love to one another.
Yeah.
But that's a huge killer in early marriages. And I'm so glad that we learned it early on and that I've heard other people, like it's really taken off. And I think that's good.
And I think that's kind of something where sometimes people regret their relationship when they see a connection or those feelings happen with somebody else. And they feel like, oh, this is what it should be like. Without realizing that these things come.
That's not true. You can go chasing that feeling and maybe you'll find it with someone else and then it will die again. And so you will become that person who just goes from person to person, and you are like a vampire.
Yeah.
Because you are sucking out an emotional joy for yourself.
Yeah.
And then you're going, oh, I'm not getting that anymore. To the next person, they fall down as like a husk, you know. And that's actually one of the real basis things, a foundational thing about marriage, is you don't go into it to fulfill yourself. If that's what you're doing, you're the vampire, right?
Okay, yeah.
Like you should be going, I want to express love to this person so much that I'm prepared to pair with them for my whole life. And serve them and love them. Now, it is mutual. Like, you're not going, I'm going to do this and expect nothing in return, right? Marriage is mutual. Like, you're going into this thinking, and they will do the same for me.
I see.
So it's not selfish in that you go in going, what can I get?
Yeah.
But you go in saying, what can I give? On the understanding that they've got the same attitude. What can I give to them? So when you argue in a marriage, the best arguments are, you should have priority. No, you should have priority. No, you should have priority. They're still annoying, but it's way better to be arguing that than I should come first. No, I should come first.
Yeah, true.
That's when you punch each other.
Yeah.
Like, when you're fighting about who's going to love one another more, that's never going to end in a punch up.
Yeah, that's actually a good one, because I do have some of that conversation with my wife a lot, with like, no, you should do this and you should have this. It's like, no, you can have the last piece of cake and stuff like that. And I think that is, because I do get annoyed sometimes by it, but I think it's better than that's like, you need to do this for me. So I actually, that's some pretty good advice. You see, guys, this is the reason why I appreciate this man.
Bam. I think another big growing pain, in fact, I would say the only other big growing pain, everything else I think falls under this category, is unmet expectations. So, and what do I mean by that? I mean, when you think that the marriage is going to produce something and it doesn't, or something doesn't turn out the way you think it will, that kind of problem, that unrealized expectation, is what causes, I think, the majority of issues in early marriages. So you've got the love language thing, where you have trouble communicating love to the other person and accepting their love. Everything else fits into expectations not being realized. So what do I mean? Well, think about every other problem there is, okay? Finances, right? I expect every time we spend money, it's going to buy something that lasts forever. I expect we're going to budget so that we always come well under budget, so that we've got money in case an accident happens or an emergency happens. I expect that this is a really important thing and we're going to spend a good amount of money on it. But the other person has different expectations. I think money is there to be spent and to enjoy yourself. And if you're not spending it to enjoy yourself, then you're living a miserly life, I think it's okay to buy cheap things and have them wear out and then just buy another cheap thing, because that way, if you lose it, you don't lose anything. You just go and buy another one. Those different expectations can cause, that's where arguments come in, right? That's just money. Like, money is a huge one though. But you think about the future, okay? Maybe I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm working in a job and maybe it's a dead-end job, but I'm happy, right? But my spouse wants us to be climbing up the ladder, and she expects in the future that we will own a house. That's not an unreal expectation. No, lots of families work hard to save money and buy a house, right? But if you don't both think that's where it's going, you're going to argue about that. Because every time you spend some money on a computer or a holiday, the other person's going to be saying, that could have gone into the house fund.
True.
Yeah. So the future is a big thing. Like one person thinks, I'm going to go and study overseas. The other person says, my family is here and I don't want to leave. Right? How do you...
the other person to know
They
that.
expect the other person to know that, and they expect nothing we would do is going to disturb my relationship with my family.
Yeah.
Nothing we do as a couple is going to disturb my desire to go as high as I can in my employment, my career. There's not going to be anything that restrains that.
Yeah.
Kids. So as I was saying,
Kids. Yeah.
I don't have any, and I heartily recommend not having any. But it's one of those things where before you get married, one person might say, I really want to have kids. I want to have hundreds of fat children. And the other person says, I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah.
When you get married, then that person says, actually, I don't want kids. It's too late. Right? Someone not wanting to have kids is not a Christian reason for divorce.
Yeah.
But it's a hell of a reason to be feeling like you've got unmet expectations from your marriage.
Yeah.
Right? Even like that's a polar opposite, but even just I want 2 kids and I want 1 kid, or I want 4 kids and I want 2 kids.
Yeah.
It's the difference between whether you have to buy a small car or a big car.
Yeah.
But those will be expectations, and then how you raise them when you have them, whose life is it going to impact, who's going to stay home and look after them. Is it going to be dad, is it going to be mum? You need to talk about that stuff. Right? That's best to talk about. Kids are so big, you need to talk about that stuff before you get married.
Sure.
But even when you get married, the how and the when of it, you should talk about that stuff. The other unrealized expectations, sex.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, how much are we going to have? How are we going to have it? When are we going to have it? How does that work? What do you like?
Yeah.
Right?
What don't you like?
Yeah, what don't you like? Like, those things, again, especially in a Christian context, it's awkward to talk about those things, because honestly, if you've never been married before and you have lived a clean life, you may not even know.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's one of those key ones. This is a really good example of what not to do. It's really easy with sex because it's hard to talk about, and it's something that is intimate between you and your partner.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really easy to have this expectation. My spouse should know what I like.
Yeah.
My spouse should know what I don't like. That's so unfair.
True.
It's so unfair. Don't ever do that. And I know women get the brunt of, they're always like, well, if you love me, you'd know what I like.
Yeah.
But men do it as well.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
it's exactly the same. Don't ever do that. Like, if you want to have some mystery or something, I don't know, play Cluedo. But don't do it with sex. Like, sex is this beautiful, amazing thing, but if you weaponize it, it's deadly. It's absolutely deadly. So sex should never be a weapon in an argument. Like, if you don't agree with me, we're not going to have sex.
Yeah.
That's not on, because it is such an intimate thing. When you start doing that, you're going to start ticking in the other person's mind, well, then where do I look for it? If I can't have it in marriage, where do I look for it?
Can you just hold on for a sec?
Yeah.
I am looking at this and I don't know if the mics are on.
Oh!
Okay. Okay, it is.
It is?
Yeah, it should be. That would be so crazy if this mics are not working though.
Man,
Yeah.
I really hope it's all fine.
So yeah.
But look,
Yeah.
there's other things that are often unmet expectations.
Yeah.
The division of home life. Who does the cooking? Who does the cleaning? Who does most of the work?
Yeah.
Like the employment earning work. Who looks after the finances?
Yeah.
Who draws up a budget? Now, it's easy to say, we're going to split all those things down the middle.
Yeah.
That might work in some magical relationship.
Yeah.
What we've found in our relationship is you work out who hates the job least or who cares about it being done most.
Yeah.
And that person does it, right? As long as there's generally a division so that not one person's doing everything and the other one's sitting on the couch drinking beer in their underpants, then it's fine.
Yeah.
So for example, I do all the cooking in the house because Penny doesn't care about cooking. I do.
Yeah.
And she's not very good at it and I am.
Yeah.
So I do that. But she does the washing up.
Yeah.
Right? Penny does most of the household chores, and I know that anyone out there who knows her knows she's a feminist. She still does most of the household chores. But if the car breaks down, that's on me. If we need new computers or they need upgrading or something breaks with them, that's on me.
Yeah.
All the banking is on me.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of other jobs, and they might not be things that are every day like cooking or cleaning, but they're still a big deal. Penny hates dealing with people.
Yeah.
So if she had to call someone and figure out, how am I going to book the car in to get it serviced or something, that's a big deal for her.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
So I take care of all the face stuff in our relationship. What's important isn't that it's 50-50.
Yeah.
What's important is it's a division that you are both able to live with and that just doing the things doesn't frustrate you.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing worse than the idea of someone sitting at home thinking, I have to do all of this, and the other person isn't pulling their weight. That's a recipe for arguments.
Yeah.
Right?
Because I'm wondering what happens in a situation where, because we are talking to mostly men, is where a man just decides that, you know what, I'm just going to make her happy regardless of whatever I want. Like when it comes to division of things in the house, and she's very adamant, like things should be this way, or I want you to do this, and you're just like, okay, fine, I'll do that, just to keep peace.
So there's a big issue there, which isn't the division of what you do in the house. It's how you come to make decisions, right? So as I said, communication solves most of these problems. But if you're communicating that I'm just going to give you whatever you want because what I really want is peace, you are going to end up being the frustrated one. Right? You've got to remember, in a marriage, it's not you versus the other person, right? It's you and the other person working together to build a common thing. That's what the marriage is. You're building a family that isn't you and isn't the other person. It is both of you together. So, sometimes you might want peace and you'll just be like, sure, I'm just going to do that because it will make you happy and that will make me happy and we'll be fine. But if you keep feeling like you're giving in, then you're going to feel resentment, and that won't last forever. It builds up like the pressure in a cool drink when you shake it up, and one day it's going to go bang, and who knows what's going to happen. But I can guarantee you it's never a good thing. So you've got to be working together. One of the big problems, and this is a question that Deviate asked me himself, which was, how do you deal with arguments? Okay? So I've got two really good pieces of advice for having arguments. One is, don't try and win an argument. Okay? There are no winners in arguments in a marriage. There are only losers. So don't be a loser. The reason you're a loser if you try and win an argument is because anything you try and win is for you. And marriage isn't about you. It's about the marriage. It's about this thing in the middle between you, that where you are both building that. So if you're trying to win something, win for the marriage. Right? And the marriage should be beneficial for both people. Marriage is an awesome thing. It's not a trap. Right? It's not this thing that you fall into and go, help, what have I done? It is awesome. But like any good thing, it takes work. PS5s don't just fall out of the sky, and they don't give them away on street corners because they're valuable. Right? Marriage is valuable. You work at it, you get something good. You don't, you end up with the game station. Right? Like that's how it is. It's how it is with everything else. Why would it be different with marriage? So when you're arguing, right, argue passionately for a position that benefits the marriage.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Because then it's not I win, you win. How can anyone be resentful about something that is for the benefit of the marriage?
Yeah.
Right? Communication comes in where I think this would benefit the marriage most. Spouse thinks something else would benefit the marriage most. And we have to try and work out what we both think will actually benefit the marriage. And maybe that means, I won't agree, but we will do what she says.
Yeah.
And maybe it means she doesn't agree, but we'll do what I say, because we can see that somewhere it'll be best for the marriage.
Oh.
Let me give you an example with the career thing. Okay, sometimes in a marriage, what you want and what the other person wants just can't be put together.
Yep.
Right? It just can't. You should try really hard to find out a way where both people can be fulfilled, but sometimes things happen out of your control.
Yeah.
And you've got to make a decision that's going to be bad for someone. Or sometimes it's just what you want and what the other person wants don't gel.
Yeah.
And one, either both of you don't get what you want, or someone's going to get what they want and someone isn't. Now, I don't say someone wins and someone loses, because the way you make that decision is to make the marriage win.
Yeah.
Right? Penny and I came to Namibia. We came because the marriage won, right? It was for Penny to come and lecture here, and I had to give up practicing law to do that, right? So it wasn't she won and I lost.
Yeah.
It was, there was something she wanted to do. It was best for the marriage.
Yeah.
And so I willingly gave up practicing law. Now we're back in Australia and I'm practicing law. So, that's cool.
Yeah.
But again, if Penny got an opportunity to do something, we would sit down and seriously discuss it, right? And we'd come to a conclusion together.
Yeah.
Because that's what marriage is. It's a mutuality where we both come to a decision that this is what's best for the marriage. That's how it goes.
Cool.
Look, there's a whole bunch of other things where there's unrealized expectations. Like, for example, where does family come in? Where does work come in? Where do kids come in? You'll have all different thoughts about that.
Yeah.
But the reason they cause arguments is because you've just got these expectations that you've never communicated. And because you haven't communicated them, you just think it's going to go this way. Spouse thinks it's going to go the other way. And bang, argument happens. Yeah. Anyway, I said I was going to give you 2 pieces of advice about having arguments, and I gave you one. Let me give you the second one. The second one is... What is the second one? Yes, really important. The second one is, when you argue in a marriage, you have to agree beforehand that this is not going to end the marriage. Okay? Yep. You've got to agree, as husband and wife, that this marriage is for life. Even though we're arguing and we disagree about something, this is not going to end the marriage. Once you have accepted that, arguments have a very different place in your relationship. And I'll give you a good example about how this works, because this is another really good piece of advice. So you're getting 2 pieces of advice for one here. You know those times when you get into arguments with your wife, because apparently we're talking mainly to men, so with your wife. You know that they happen more often late at night. Yeah. You know they happen more often when you're rushing to get somewhere, or maybe just before you're going to a big event, like someone's wedding or something. They happen at these times that are really inconvenient. Going to bed is inconvenient because you want to go to sleep, but also when you're tired, you get more emotional, and the arguments just spiral out of control. Yeah. Once you've realized that this argument is not going to end the marriage, you realize that argument can be set aside. Not that you'd never deal with it, but if it's happening at a bad time, you can just say, no, time out.
Yeah.
This is not a good time to have this argument.
Yeah.
It's too emotional, or we're headed on the way to church, or we're already late for something. We already know we're going to sort this out.
Yeah.
Okay? We already know we love one another, and this isn't going to be the end. So let's park it now and move it to another time. Not 3 weeks from now. Like if it's important, move it to the next day.
Yeah.
Make time for it. But don't make time for it at midnight. That's a bad time to have an argument.
Yeah.
So make it at lunchtime, or make it, at dinner time, or somewhere where you've got time that gives it the priority, but takes it away from being a bad time. You can do that only when you've decided that we are in this and we're not going to part just because of this argument.
Yeah.
You can have some huge arguments, right? Let me remind you of the 3 reasons the Bible says are legitimate for divorce. Do you know what they are?
So it is infidelity.
Yeah. So adultery.
Yeah. Some do go to as far as saying abuse.
Abuse.
The third one would be...
It also starts with A. So let me give you the 3 A's.
Assault.
Adultery. Abuse is assault, man. Come on. That's, abandonment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we read in 1 Corinthians, Paul says, if you're married to a non-Christian and they want out, let them go. You can't hold on to them and be like, no. But if they don't want out, it says stay married.
Yeah.
What that means is the biggest argument you can imagine between a husband and a wife, Christian and non-Christian, is not a reason for divorce.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you can understand that the biggest thing in your life is not a reason for you to split up your marriage, then you can sit down and say, honey, I love you, but it's past midnight and this is just gonna go bad. Let's set it aside for lunchtime tomorrow. Then we'll sit down and we'll give it time and we'll deal with it. When you are prepared to do that, it puts arguments in a whole different position.
Yeah.
So that's why the number 2 piece of advice is you build your marriage on the idea that it is forever.
Yeah.
I like to say, if you're not making a plan for your marriage to last forever, you're making an escape plan.
Wow.
They're the only 2 options you have, right? You shouldn't be looking to escape from your marriage. You should be looking to build it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why, here's another piece of advice for you. Invest in your marriage, right? Money and time are the things you can invest in anything to make them better and more valuable.
Yeah.
Why would it be different for your marriage? And that's why sometimes, even though, as I said, I like to hoard money and put it aside, because I've been poor enough to know that if you can't afford to replace the thing when it breaks, your life gets worse. But sometimes you have to say, taking a holiday will invest in our marriage. It will give us time away from the stressful things. It will give us time to connect, to enjoy one another's company in a special way. Right? You don't go on a holiday every week, but you do it sometimes because it's an investment in your marriage. Right? In the same way, sometimes you get takeaway. Because you don't feel like cooking together. That's a really small example, really. And man, you look at the takeaway and you go, what? Like I could have made this at home for half that price. But that's not what it's about. It's about investing in the marriage, doing something a little bit special. Something that's going to show the other person you care, and together build that marriage, that thing that is you two together. And what's best for that is best for both of you. So those are some really important pieces of advice there. How much time we got?
I think that we are actually almost out of time.
We're almost out of time.
But man, there's some really good advice. I might just rewatch this video again just to like write everything down. But yeah, the growing pains of marriage are real.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely.
And I think, just like you said, preparing for that, and also just using everything that you've mentioned will actually make marriages, your marriage better. I do love what you just mentioned about if you're not planning to build, you're planning to escape, because I will admit that I haven't, my plan was just that the marriage is going to last forever, but not actually putting anything down. Like,
Yeah.
So it's easy to go into that area of like, what happens if she leaves me? What am I going to do next? Right.
And you should not be thinking about that.
Yeah,
You should be thinking about, how do I strengthen this so that never happens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's great stuff.
Let me give one more, not advice, but it's just some wisdom. So next week, we're 19 years married. That's a pretty long time.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it gets better, right? Like those first couple of years are hard, right? And it feels like there's a lot of work and there's not heaps of payoff, like there's little payoffs.
Yeah.
You get to where we are now, if you've been building on it, it's lots of payoff.
Yeah.
And it's less work. There's still work. You're always learning. But I can tell you, 19 years of marriage is way better than 15 years of marriage. It's way better than 10 years of marriage. And it's way better than 5 years of marriage.
And I'm just like 1 year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But that only comes from investing and building.
Yeah.
And you'll get to 15 years. I pray you do get to 15 years. When you get there, you'll be like, I wish I'd done these things earlier because the payoff is so good. I wish I'd done them in the second year and not the 9th year.
Yeah.
Because I could have had 7 more years of payoff of this.
Yeah.
Right? So, like when I say invest, I mean it. You know, if you feel bad that you didn't invest in Bitcoin and it went boom, right?
Yeah.
Think about how good the things are when you invest in them in marriage after 10 years.
Yeah.
How much of a benefit your marriage has received and therefore you've received.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Marriage does get better. It does get easier. But that comes from work.
All right. So you heard it from the man himself, all the way from Australia, and you will be leaving in a couple of days.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll find a way to make this work, like while you're over there and we're here.
Yeah. I don't have good cameras or good microphones, so that's just a warning.
We'll make it work, I'm sure. All right, so that's all we have for today for Grown Men Talk. We'll be back with some more videos, so make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and let us know what you think in the comments about the growing pains of marriage.
Woo!
Cool.